The monitor was beeping every few seconds, and I was trying to breathe slowly the way the nurse had told me, and my mother was checking her phone. I had called her from the ER parking lot. I had driven myself because that's what I do. I handle things, I manage, I don't want to be a burden. I had been having chest pain since Thursday, and I had told myself it was stress, it was acid reflux, it was nothing, and by Saturday morning it was so bad I sat down on my kitchen floor and thought, this might actually be something. I drove myself to Hartwell Memorial at 8 in the morning, shaking the whole way, and they took one look at my EKG and moved fast. Heart attack. 39 years old. The kind that comes from too much cortisol and not enough sleep and years of absorbing everything without putting any of it down. My parents arrived 2 hours later. My father had his jacket half unzipped the way he does when he's somewhere he didn't plan to be long. My mother stood at the foot of my bed with her purse held in front of her like a shield and looked at the monitors with the careful expression of someone trying to understand something that wasn't quite reaching her. "You're stable now," she said. "Tyler's game starts in 40 minutes. I looked at her. "It's the playoff bracket," she said. "He's been working toward this all season." Tyler is 28 years old and the center of a universe my parents constructed around him starting somewhere around his freshman year of high school. He plays recreational adult football in a league that meets at the county park on Saturday evenings. He was a high school star once. Genuinely good, the kind of good that fills a town for a few years and then fades when the kid gets to college and finds out the world is bigger than Hartwell County. That was 10 years ago. He never quite found his footing afterward, and my parents never quite accepted that the version of Tyler they had built their entire identity around was no longer what he actually was. So they kept showing up. Every game. Every scrimmage. They kept showing up for the 35-mile-an-hour version of who he used to be. My father put his hand on my arm briefly. "You're in good hands here, Ray." Ray, he's called me that since I was small, a nickname that always felt like shorthand for someone he didn't have time to say the full name of. "These nurses know what they're doing." "I had a heart attack," I said. "Mild," my mother said. "The doctors said mild." He said it was a warning. He said I need to be monitored overnight. And they're doing that. She said it like it solved something. Like the monitoring was the same as someone staying. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, tell me where you're watching from. Because I need to know I'm not the only one who understands what that room felt like. They left at 4:17. I watched the door close behind them, and I listened to the monitor, and I thought, I could have died this morning. I could have died on my kitchen floor at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, and by 4:17 they were in the car heading to the county park. That was the moment I understood something I had been circling my whole life without letting myself land on it. I could literally die, and I would still come second. Here's what the hospital was like. I want you to be in that room with me, because I think it matters. The lights were fluorescent and slightly too bright, and the pillow was thin. There was a cafeteria coffee on the rolling tray table that had gone cold before I touched it. Down the hall, I could hear a television. The man in the room next to mine had a family. I could hear them rotating in, a daughter, a son-in-law, grandchildren who got shushed in the corridor. Every hour or so someone would bring him something, a different pillow, a cup of soup, a hand to hold while the machines did their measuring. I lay in my bed, and I listened to all of it, and I kept my eyes on the ceiling. I called my best friend Carolyn, who lives in Phoenix, and she cried on the phone and wanted to book a flight, and I told her not to. It was too far. I was fine. I kept saying I was fine the way I always say it. I talked to her for 45 minutes, and that helped. When we hung up, the room was very quiet. My nurse, Dana Holt, came in around 7 to check my vitals. She was the kind of person who does her job with an extra layer, not just technically thorough, but present. She noticed things. She had noticed, I think, that the chairs in my room were empty. "Do you need anything?" she asked. Not in the rote way. In the actual way. "I'm okay," I said. She adjusted something on the monitor and didn't leave right away. "Your family was here earlier?" "My parents. They had somewhere to be." She didn't respond to that directly. She just said, "You did the right thing coming in when you did. A lot of people wait too long." She looked at me. "You okay being alone tonight?" The question hit somewhere unexpected. Not because it was sad, because it was kind. I had not been asked that question in that way in longer than I could easily remember. I had been the person other people assumed was okay. I had been the person who managed. Yes, I said. Thank you. She left, and I lay in the dark, and I thought about being asked if I was okay. Subscribe if you're tired of stories where people just keep absorbing it. Because what happened next was the moment everything changed. I want to tell you about Tyler's game. I found out about it because my mother posted photos. That same night, while I was in the cardiac unit with monitors on my chest and a potassium drip in my arm, she posted 7 photos from the sideline. Tyler in his jersey. Tyler catching something. Tyler with his arm around my father, both of them grinning in the parking lot lights. The caption said, "So proud of this guy. Family night." I saw them at 11:15 when I couldn't sleep and made the mistake of opening Instagram. Family night. I put my phone face down on the tray table and I looked at the ceiling for a long time. Here is what I want you to know about the 39 years that came before that moment. I was the oldest. I was the one who did the things oldest daughters do in families where the youngest son is the miracle. I was quiet, I was good, I got acceptable grades instead of exceptional ones. I did not require spectacle. Tyler's football trophies were on the mantle. My college acceptance letters were in a drawer. Tyler's knee injury in junior year was a family crisis. My ER visit at 26 for appendicitis. I drove myself, I didn't call, they found out 2 days later, was described as very Raina, always handling things. I was 26 and I drove myself to the emergency room for appendicitis, and they found out 2 days later. They didn't skip Tyler's game for that either. I didn't tell them. I knew not to. Don't make everything about yourself. My mother said that to me so many times growing up that I stopped knowing how to identify when something was actually about me. I had a heart attack, and I spent the first 4 hours making sure everyone knew I was stable. I was 39 years old with a cardiac event, and I was managing everyone else's comfort level about it. Dana came back at midnight to check on me. She didn't have to. Her shift had turned over. She was technically done, but she had a few minutes, she said, and she wanted to see how I was doing. She knocked softly before she came in. She pulled the chair over and she sat in it, which nobody had sat in since my parents left. "You've been through something serious today," she said. "Not just the medical part." I didn't say anything. "It's okay to let that be serious," she said. I cried then. Not dramatically, just the quiet kind that comes when someone gives you permission you didn't know you were waiting for. She handed me a tissue and she stayed for a few minutes and she didn't try to fix anything, she just sat there, and that was the thing that I kept thinking about after. That it was a stranger who sat in the chair. That the only person who stayed was someone who was paid to care and chose to do more than her job required. When I got home 3 days later, I sat in my apartment and I thought very clearly about what I wanted the rest of my life to look like. I had been paying my parents' cell phone bill for 4 years. I stopped. I had been watching Tyler's 2 kids every other weekend because he and his girlfriend needed a break, and I was available, and family helps family. I stopped. I had been the person who organized Thanksgiving and remembered everyone's birthdays and sent cards and showed up when called and absorbed and adjusted and made room. I stopped. Not loudly. Not with a speech. I just stopped being available in the ways I had been available, and I waited to see how long it took anyone to notice. My mother noticed first. 3 weeks later, she called wanting to know if I could take the kids Saturday. I said I had cardiac rehab. She said still. The way she says things she means as practical, but land as dismissive. "I had a heart attack, Mom," I said. "Recovery takes months." "I know that, Raina. I just thought. I need to focus on myself right now." Silence. The particular silence of someone who has never heard me say that before and isn't sure what to do with it. Tyler called a month later. He wanted to know if I could spot him $300 for something involving his truck. He led into it with small talk. How was I feeling? Was I doing better? And I heard the shape of it before he reached the ask, the way you learn to recognize patterns you've lived inside for decades. I'm not in a position to do that right now, I said. You doing okay? He asked. Like the question was new. I'm taking care of myself, I said. He paused. Then, you've been kind of cold lately. Is everything all right? Are you upset about something? And there it was. The version of me that didn't give things and show up and absorb was cold. Was something to be corrected back into availability. Tyler, I said. Do you know what hospital I was in when I had my heart attack? He said the name of it. Correct. Do you know what day I was discharged? A pause. I think Mom said Wednesday. Thursday, I said. You didn't call me while I was there. I figured you were resting. You didn't call, I said. Not angry. Just clear. I was in the cardiac unit for 3 days, and you didn't call. And now you're asking me for money. I let that sit. I'm only family when you need something. And I'm done being that kind. He didn't have a response to that. I didn't expect one. And honestly, I want to know in the comments, what would you have done? It's been 7 months since the heart attack. I do cardiac rehab on Tuesday and Thursday mornings in a bright room with other people who got scared and survived. I have a doctor I like, a therapist I see twice a month, and a savings account I stopped depleting on other people's problems. My apartment is quiet in a way that used to feel lonely and now feels like something I chose. I had coffee on my patio this morning while the sun came up. The kind of morning where the light comes in slowly and the neighborhood is still, and the only sound is birds and far-off traffic and your own breathing, which you are paying attention to now in a way you weren't before. I thought about the monitor beeping, about the cold coffee on the tray table, about Dana pulling a chair over at midnight because she had a few extra minutes and a decent heart. The heart attack almost killed me. But finally seeing my family clearly, really seeing them, without the fog of hoping they'd eventually show up differently, that's what saved me. I stopped waiting for them to choose me the night they chose a football game over my heartbeat. That was the last night I waited.